I don't want to say that it's getting crazier out there in Portland with the clashing between the left and the right, because it's not like we're seeing as much of the conflict as we saw in the past few years, but it still is getting crazier. Gunshots. Apparently, there were two people shooting at each other. Someone's been arrested. It kind of looks like the guy who got arrested was an Antifa guy. There's another video where there's a younger man being yelled at by an older guy, and these are Antifa people. And the older guy is saying, if you don't know when to draw your weapon, and it sounds like Antifa has shown up with guns. There are other reports that Antifa is walking around with AR-15s and other kinds of rifles. And one Antifa guy claimed on social media that Antifa positioned snipers in Portland, and then deleted his account. So it all started because there's a right-wing group that wanted to have a Summer of Love, apparently a permitted rally where they were going to speak. And Antifa, of course, can't allow that, and then started attacking the rally. And thus, you see Proud Boys and other I don't even know what to call it, right-wing groups. They started clashing. And now Antifa is using it for propaganda rather effectively, because I don't think the right understands how the media game is played. You know, I was sitting on, I'm browsing Reddit as I normally do. And Reddit, of course, is very left, you know, the general feel of it. It's not always. There's other subreddits that are more right wing. And there's a photo of a tipped over vehicle with a handicap sign on it and some, right wing looking dudes pushing on it. And it said, Proud Boys knock over handicap van or whatever. Well, it turns out the actual story is that apparently the van drove into the right-wing protest, and I don't know if it's an intentional attack by vehicle, but I would assume if the Proud Boys were fighting with it, there was something going on, and they flipped the vehicle over. I'll tell you this, it's all really, really dumb. And I don't think the people on the right realize the game they're playing, as I stated, and thus they'll keep losing. I mean, they may be proud of themselves for getting a symbolic victory by pushing back violent attackers, but in the end, they just lose the long game because they don't understand. A photo emerges of them knocking over a handicap vehicle. That's what Antifa is doing on purpose. And so long as there is no tact and no strategy to what they're doing, they will keep being called the aggressors and the bad guys. There was one report, I think it was Reuters. It said far-right groups clash with left-wing groups. Antifa is not left-wing. They're as far left as you can get. They're crackpot authoritarians who went to a rally and attacked people. So how about the real reporting? Right-wing group puts on rally, Antifa attacks it. That's it. Now what they do is they ignore the greater context of why it's happening, blame the right-wing groups, and then say, far-right groups clash with the left. So long as these right-wing groups keep engaging in this way, you're going to keep losing. It's like they're baiting you, right? We'll get into it, but I want to go over the news first because, we've got escalation. According to Post Millennial, Antifa has set up a new autonomous zone. I just can't stand. That's the other thing, too. People who oppose this stuff use the language and the definitions of the extremists. It's a no-go zone. Just call it that. Autonomous zone, as if to imply they have any real authority to do what they do. I get it. They call it an autonomous zone. And so now people on the right just say, okay, yeah, it's an autonomous zone. No, it's a no-go zone. It's an area they barricaded off from police and people don't want to go in there. They can call it whatever they want. They can call it the happy-go-lucky fun time hour. I don't care. It's a no-go zone as per the standard definition. An area where police or paramedics don't go or cannot go or refuse to go. An area that's been cut off. The Post Millennial reports shots fired as Antifa militants violently disrupt patriotic-themed event in Portland, establish autonomous zone. They say hundreds of Black Bloc Antifa arrived at Portland's waterfront park on Sunday to counter-protest the Summer of Love, Patriots Spreading Love, Not Hate event, which was scheduled to begin at 2 p.m. However, the right-wing group moved to a different location and an abandoned Kmart parking lot in Northeast Portland to escape threats of violence. Look at that. You see, here's the issue. I'll get accused of whitewashing the far right. I certainly think it's true that there are many Proud Boys and many on the right who hold events in places like Portland knowing they will get into a fight because many of them want to fight Antifa. In fact, there was the fourth degree. That's what they called it for the Proud Boys for a long time. I think they got rid of this, was that you had to defend traditional values or America in a fight. And they said, I think they changed it to be no, they meant figurative fight. I think it initially was like a physical fight. Yeah, that's bad. And that's the problem with this. There are guys that want to go out and fight. No, look, this, I wouldn't consider this in that realm. Okay, if you want to go and have a rally in Portland and you're setting up a truck and you want to speak, I would not consider that a provocation. When certain groups go and march around Portland knowing Antifa will come out, that I take issue with. But then there's a bigger philosophical and ethical conundrum. People are allowed to protest. Right-wing groups are allowed to march through the streets. And so the challenge is, just because they know Antifa will show up, does that make them the bad guys? And well, it seems like often, or I shouldn't say often, but a lot of what Proud Boys have been doing in Portland was showing up. I shouldn't even say Proud Boys, right? Other right-wing groups, Patriot Prayer, knowing they're going to get into a fight. This is the stupidest thing ever. I get it. It's a rock and a hard place. Do you just stop protesting or marching for free speech and your rights because violent brown shirts are showing up? Antifa, of course, being, fascistic and Nazi-like. Do you just stop because of them? No, you have to stand up for your rights. The issue, though, is strategy and tact. And if you know they're baiting you back, why do you keep walking into their traps? I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers. I'm not going to pretend to say someone is, morally right or wrong. I think people have a right to well, no, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. Antifa clearly is wrong to attack people who are peacefully rallying. But look at the photos that are emerging. Look at the news stories that are emerging. Antifa is actually counter-baiting Proud Boys with this because they know the media will defend them or lie to protect the extremists. And in the end, the right-wing groups will be the pariahs. So we have drone footage showing the size. Oh, man, I've been to that place so many times, that little area. Many members of Antifa were armed with various different weapons. Reports indicate that 2 members were seen with AR-15s and SKS rifles. Yeah, good for them. They're allowed to have them. The Portland Police Bureau announced Friday in a press release that law enforcement officers would not be intervening to protect residents from the riotous activity expected to take place. So one tweet said, 4 Antifa members in black bloc walking down Portland waterfront park, 2 armed, 1 carrying an SKS, and the other an AR-15. I caught these 2 at a distance. Won't pursue them for better photos as I'm with my family. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. You shouldn't anyway. They're allowed to walk around with their guns. I don't like Antifa. I think they're crazy. And now someone's being arrested, but you're allowed to do it. Look, you want to report people of weapons. I'm not ragging on the guy for saying it. That's important. These people are getting violent and we should know. I'm not going to condemn them for having the weapons, though. Welcome to America. It's called the Second Amendment. Gunfire erupts after Proud Boy and anti-fascists openly brawl in Portland without police intervention. Do you see how these stories get labeled, what they're saying about it? Instead of saying gunfire erupts after anti-fascists attack peaceful rally. Yeah. If I set up a lemonade stand and someone comes and kicks it down, are you going to say lemonade stand and man brawl in streets? Lemonade connoisseur? Or are you going to say man attacks lemonade stand? The media is not here to protect you. They're here to lie and make you look bad. So when I say things like this, they accuse me of whitewashing the far right because they don't want anyone telling you the truth. Look, I'll tell you this right now. I think everybody getting in these fights, it's stupid. But then there's the challenge. We have to stand up for our freedom. We have to go and rally and march. And what do you do if Antifa keeps showing up? Well, I would say this. Stand up for what you believe in. Speak up. But man, you got to know how the game is played and what their goal is. It's not so simple to say I can just stand there and yell things, but that's better than nothing, I will admit, within reason. It's that, first, I'm showing you this. They got the guy who's been arrested. Let me show you what the police bureau says. This on Sunday, August 22nd at 5:47 p.m., Central Precinct officers responded to a report of shots heard in the area of Southwest 2nd Avenue and Southwest Yamhill Street. Officers learned of a suspect firing a gun and a description of travel. 3 minutes later, they located the suspect at Southwest 3rd Avenue and Southwest Alder Street. He was arrested and the gun was seized as evidence. Officers booked Dennis G. Anderson, 65, of Gresham, into the Multnomah County Detention Center on charges of unlawful possession of a firearm and unlawful use of a weapon. Now, I don't believe this guy was right-wing. Based on the photos of him, he looks more like Antifa, but what does that really even mean? I can say, based on a few different tweets, I think it was likely to be Antifa. Andy No says, Portland Antifa member John Hamm, 36, who tweeted that he should be shot in the head, also tweeted out that Antifa had staged snipers across downtown on August 22nd. He has quickly deleted his account. And you can see he said, yes, that there's snipers positioned, and he deleted his account. We have this tweet from Drew Hernandez. Portland, I will beat the F out of you. Luis Enrique Marquez was on a good one today. He was even threatening members of Antifa. This man you see on the left is holding a gun. The man coming up and yelling at him is saying, if you don't know when to, and he points to the weapon in his hand, when to draw your weapon, a child, then you shouldn't have it. We see a young Antifa guy armed with a gun. Look, man, we haven't seen the full level of violence like we saw in the previous year, but let me tell y'all something. Right now, funny enough, the people who are ragging on me are establishment Democrat types, mainstream media. Oh, they don't like the fact that I'm not backed by the millionaires and the billionaires, and that I'm not towing the establishment line. Interestingly, though, there are many leftists, yes, believe it or not, who are actually saying nice things about me. No, for real. You know why? Because it's very simple. When your main line is like freedom, you know, anti-oppression and stuff like that, like the government shouldn't be oppressing people, well, then it's hard for them to actually say anything outright negative. But when it comes to politics, Antifa tends to defend establishment Democrats, which, of course, is the fascist. Well, look, the Uniparty, they're fascists, whatever. And I mean that in the Mussolini sense, lucrative merger of you know, corporation and state. You have right now a lull period. All right. 2020 was a massive election year, massive. And so everyone drew their tribal lines very hard. Of course, I was saying the Democrats are awful. And because Antifa said Trump was worse, I, of course, was the bad guy. Now it's cooled off a little bit as far as the far left is concerned, because we're not in an electoral politics season. This year, there's nothing going on. I mean, there's some politics, but everyone's exhausted. Everyone's tired, so they're not really paying attention. And thus, the bigger issues come to whether or not police are violating their oath by cracking down on small businesses and rounding people up, and general issues of liberty. So we've seen a lull in the overt violence. It's starting to pick up for obvious reasons. We're going to start seeing right-wing groups start having their rallies and espousing their beliefs and supporting their politicians, especially, you know, we're not, in a few months, we're going to start seeing the midterm campaigns kicking up. Next year will be elections. So this year, everyone's kind of, you know, chilled out. Antifa, of course, will call all of the people on the right fascists and Nazis, and they'll start showing up and acting a fool. I'll start calling them fascists and Nazis, and then you'll see the escalation. So here's why I'm telling you this. The only reason I think that things have been moderately calm in terms of, you know, Antifa violence with right-wing groups, it's been happening, don't get me wrong, but it's not been to this scale. You see how bad this is going to get? There are multiple people with guns. They're now shooting at each other. I said this would happen. I love it when they're like, Tim's predictions are always wrong. Well, often it's just hypotheticals, sure. And yeah, often my predictions are wrong. But when I said, I see no reason for this to de-escalate, please give me one, they say, oh, you're crazy, it'll never happen. I remember 3 years ago saying we would get to this point. They have guns. They are shooting at each other. They are walking around with more and more weapons. They have escalated, you know, beyond just paintballs and pepper spray. Of course, what we mostly saw in Portland was pepper spray, and the right-wing groups chased off the left-wing groups and things like that. But now we're starting to see people with guns. And sooner or later, it's going to be shootouts, like overt shootouts. Now, look, yes, at the no-go zone at the in Capitol Hill in Seattle, they had rifles, and they unloaded hundreds of rounds into a vehicle. That was extremely bad, but that wasn't an exchange of gunfire between two rival factions. That was apparently some kids joyriding getting just sprayed. We'll say that. I think we're going to get to the point where right-wing groups are going to show up with their guns. Like we saw a guy walking through, I think it was Portland, with an airsoft, and everyone was freaking out. What happens now that they brought out real guns? And you're going to start seeing people on the right come out with their real guns. We already are. Add into that the 2022 midterms, where you're going to have hot, angry politicking. It's going to get bad. Let me show you something. We got this from Drew Hernandez. It says, Luis Enrique Marquez again led the charge of Antifa, threatening a man with a Navy veteran hat. Now, this is the important part. In this video, The guy on the left, he's wearing red. These are regular people. This is not a far right. This is not a Proud Boy. There are numerous videos of Antifa attacking and harassing regular people. In one video, there's like a woman with her dog, and they're like, get out of here. You can't go here anymore. We've seen the videos. I think this is Portland, where they had rifles trained on traffic. They were blocking traffic, setting up checkpoints. It will get worse next year because we're going to see a lot more. I mean, look, Portland's trending right now. We're going to see a lot more of this escalation, a lot more overt politics, a lot more political ads. People are going to get charged up more than they've been. Let's talk tact. Let's talk tact and what's happening. I will point out as we transition into the tact section of this video. Yes, they're calling for Andy No to be murdered. They're 187, Andy No lies. 187, that means murder. All right. We got this tweet from Drew Hernandez. Proud Boys flip over an Antifa-mobile that crashed near the empty parking lot a Patriot event was being held at. So what they're saying, according to witnesses, the van was used by Antifa to attack people at the event being held by Patriots. There was a private rally, peacefully held. Right-wing groups did it. The left doesn't want them to be able to speak, attacked them. They're claiming this van, which is clearly decommissioned. You can take a look. It's not an active use. It's got paint on it. The handicap symbol is damaged. This looks like just a used vehicle somebody had. The Proud Boys came and they flipped it. And then you end up with propaganda videos on Reddit, r/resist. Proud Boy Nazis destroy a handicap van during a Nazi rampage in Portland. This stuff appears on the front page of Reddit where regular people who don't know what's going on see it and they're going, oh no. They're scared by it. This is how they recruit. This is how they convince people to join their ranks, to join the cult. They will claim that a fight they started is the fault of the people they attacked. Now, the problem is the right-wing groups are just so easy to manipulate because their reactions are one for one. It's so predictable what the Proud Boys and Patriot Pair and other right-wing groups will do that you can easily make them look like the bad guys. Oh, it is so easy. And that's why it happens all the time. I love that video where the I think it's like Proud Boys and Patriot Prayer and the cops are blocking them and protecting Antifa. They don't get it. They don't. They see this van and they go, oh, this is Antifa van. Let's flip it over. Not realizing there is now an image of a van with the handicap symbol being flipped over. They did it on purpose. And the right gets played over and over and over and over and over. In New York, when Gavin McInnes was speaking, and Antifa basically surrounded the building and were around a bunch of other, a bunch of the city blocks, basically no way out. They started a fight with Proud Boys, or I should say this. They instigated a fight with Proud Boys. Proud Boys then initiated. And afterwards, the Proud Boys brag and gloat on live stream about smashing someone's head in the ground. And then when the police came, they said, we'll cooperate with the police. Antifa fled. And what do you get? Charges for Proud Boys. Gang violence. 4 years in prison. Any news about Antifa? Nope. You know why? They ran away. They bait the right. The right takes the bait every single time. And then the press comes out and does the rest. Now, don't get me wrong. I think the Proud Boys are wrong to be doing what they're doing in this sense, mostly because it doesn't accomplish anything. And what I mean is like flipping over the van. Why? They wanted to disable it. Okay, there's other ways to. They could have walked up, popped the hood, and pulled a spark plug or something, or popped a wire or something. I get it. They just wanted to flip it over. That's the easy reaction. The one for one, meaning when look, I'll tell you this. Proud Boy group, right-wing group, Patriot Prayer, whatever they want to do, they want to have a rally. I can tell you exactly what Antifa will do. But it's not so simple to say Antifa will show up and fight you. Antifa will show up and fight you in a way to make you look like the bad guy to their cameras, which they will then propagate on social media. You think, there are these right-wing groups, they want to engage in a fight. Not every single person, but some of them do. They're going to use that as propaganda against you. And here we go. This is what's going to keep happening. And I don't know what to tell you, but I can say based on what we see in Australia and all that and what we saw, I can't remember which city it was. Antifa are brown shirts. They are agents of the state. I'm going to let that one simmer for a little bit. It's true. There was a protest outside of a hospital for like mask mandates. Antifa showed up and beat people up in defense of state mandates. That's who these people are. The right-wing groups that show up are challenging the status quo. Antifa is defending the status quo. Antifa is on the side of Amazon and Walmart. The Proud Boys are not. The Proud Boys just don't understand how, or I keep saying Proud Boys, these right-wing individuals don't understand what they're walking into. And I think it's unfortunately because there's a lack of leadership and coordination. Antifa can cause massive damage, but see, here's what you need to get. Antifa has the high ground. That's the easiest way to explain it. They're on top of the hill. They're fortified by their allies in media and government. And the Proud Boys and the right-wing groups and Patriot Pair are on an uphill battle, challenging that status quo of Amazon, Walmart, CNN, Antifa, etc. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter engages in these riots with Antifa, and they get their logos in video games and movies. Don't you realize they have the high ground? So you can't just storm in figuratively because they have the high ground. It's like Anakin trying to jump over Obi-Wan, wing, wing, and then his legs and arms chopped off. No, you've got to understand how the game is being played, but there's no tact or strategy. So it just feels like so long as Antifa being a bunch of dumb young guys, so long as they at least have the organizational power and allies in media, what's the point of engaging in this kind of stuff if you're just going to lose every aspect of the conflict? To me, it's absurd. But again, I get it. People want to stand up for what they believe in. And, within reason, it's better than doing nothing. Of course, I always say you got to stand up. You got to fight for what you believe in. But I suppose the issue is if you were to walk into a crowd of Antifa and then stand up on a pedestal and then shout your beliefs, there's a big difference between standing up for what you believe in at your job and challenging your bosses and challenging the culture and walking into a group of people who want to beat you up and then film it to make you look like you're the bad guy. It's tough. It's tough. I'm not here to come down on people trying to do what they want to do, but I got to point out the realities of this. This is not the only, look, obviously Resist is a leftist. They got the pink hat character. I saw this video on r/all on the front page of Reddit, just scrolling in the morning. That's what happens. They are good at putting out propaganda. The right is not. And so, of course, they'll accuse me of whitewashing the right simply for telling you the truth. So here's my prediction. 2022 is around the corner. We're going to start seeing campaigning. We're going to start seeing right-wing groups show up saying yay for this candidate. And Antifa will show up and beat them. And then the media will come out and claim it's the candidate's fault. They'll claim it's the right-wing groups. They're violent. They're fascists. And they're going to get the play on Facebook and Twitter and Reddit. And they are going to ideologically decimate the right unless the right figures out what's going on and learns how to actually deal with this stuff. I don't know what to say. Obviously they try and come after me because I do point out the realities and they say I'm whitewashing the right, like I mentioned a million times, but it's all BS. Antifa started the fight. The media then blames the people who got attacked. Welcome to how the media works. I'll leave it there. One last thought. Just don't forget Gunfire, right? We'll see how this plays out as time goes on, but I hope we just hope doesn't escalate, but we think it will. I'll see you all at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out.